Today's episode of the Life of Phys Podcast is brought to you by Very Good Presets. All photographers know how saturated and underwhelming the preset market can be. You see some styles you like, you buy that pack of 20 presets, and when you put them on your photo, none of them look like what you expected. Very Good Presets has a different approach to color grading. Rather than a pack of presets, they offer them one at a time with modifiers to help refine that preset to your liking. Each preset has months of focus and calibration to make sure you get an incredible end result. Their film emulations have been used by major brands and artists such as country superstar Luke Combs. Additionally, a growing community of users rally around the brand and its developers to inspire and encourage one another. Very Good Presets strives to be an industry leader in a culture of generosity, giving regularly to organizations that help underserved communities have access to cameras, film, and photography equipment. My personal favorite preset is 1956, but with the recent release of the Portra 800, that may change soon. Check out Very Good Presets at verygoodpresets.com and try one or more of their presets using our discount code, Life of Phys. Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin, and on this episode I have Jim Sullivan. Jim is a photography director based in Southern California. He is a graduate of the Art Institute of California with a degree in Culinary Arts. Jim is a self-taught Leica photographer and a Leica Akademie Instructor. He has photographed and produced several cookbooks and was recently named brand ambassador for Harlowe. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by Harlowe. Harlowe is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because Harlowe believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at HOBOLITE.
Okay, so my name is Jim Sullivan. I am a professional food photographer. I reside or I'm based out of San Diego, California, but I grew up in Boston or just outside Boston, Mass. I guess just kind of give you my 2-minute elevator speech. I grew up in the restaurant industry. Literally, I started working in the restaurant industry around 11 or 12 years old. This is obviously a different time, so you can get away with that. But basically, helped out with doing dishes, and I was a busboy for a few years, and then sort of graduated to become a waiter. And it was at this quote unquote fine Italian restaurant just outside Boston, and so kind of that's where I learned my chops in terms of like the restaurant industry. Kind of developed a love for it ever since then. And all the way through high school, I worked as a waiter. And then my cousin was the chef de cuisine. So I kind of started doing a lot of prep work before service, and then started doing garde manger, and then graduated to the fry station, making like chicken parms and oysters Rockefeller and that kind of a thing. And then I worked all the way through high school and then into college and grad school. And when I would go to college in Boston, I would come home on a train to work the shift on the weekends. And I just loved the restaurant industry. I really didn't realize how much I did love it because going into my career, like fast forward like 20 years. About 15 years ago, I stepped down from my position in the medical field, and then went to culinary school because I just wasn't happy and I just wanted to do something that I loved. And so I worked part-time, but I went full-time to culinary school, and it was a blast. Like I loved every day of it. And then when I graduated culinary school, I was, staging and doing events and cooking, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be part of the food world. So at one point I was doing a private event. I was cooking for an artist. He was having a gallery show up in Los Angeles, and that proverbial light went on. And I remember like looking at pictures of my food from people there that were taking pictures of it with their phones. And I remember looking at the images thinking, man, I can't use these. These are garbage. And then that proverbial light went on, and I thought, maybe I could learn food photography because, I loved photography. I wasn't trained in it, but, growing up, I just remember like my family taking Polaroids and, point and shoot cameras. And I just I didn't realize how much it really resonated with me. So the next day after the event, I went on eBay. I bought an old, and I still have it over here somewhere, a Canon AE1 camera for like, I think I paid $40 for it, and bought a couple of boxes of Tri-X and just taught myself photography. And so I wanted to learn on film. I immediately put it on manual, um, and just kind of like I remember it was the daunting feeling in terms of like thinking about, the to learn all the nuances and technical aspects of photography. But I just went in head first and just, obviously made a lot of errors. And so I photographed everything but food for a couple of years until I felt comfortable. Shot a lot of film, spent a lot of money on rolls of film and getting back really crappy images from the dark room. But for me, it was like the only way that I was going to learn, because I took the approach how when I studied in culinary school, we were taught to study the classics and learn the classics and study the masters. And so when I took that same mindset into photography, I fell in love with photographers like William Eggleston, Avedon. Saul Leiter is like another one that his work really resonates with me. And so I just learned film photography. And, to this day, I still prefer to shoot film. So whenever I get a chance, or if I'm not, doing client work, I'm thinking about shooting film. And I actually have a roll of Cinestill in my M6 that I need to finish. I just got back from a trip in New York, and I still have about 6 exposures left in that, and on the Cinestill that I need to burn through before I send in the film, because I have a few rolls to send in. So anyway, so fast forward, after I started to dive into photography, I slowly kind of started doing small food shoots for local chefs here in San Diego that I was friends with, and basically I would go in and kind of learn that way, and just we kind of do a trade thing where I do a shoot, and then they allow me, and then give me dinner or whatever. It was just more of like a collaboration. And then slowly, as I got into put my name out there, build a body of work, then I started to get clients, and kind of went from there. Um, and now, after about 10, 11 years of doing it, I'm fortunate. I've done a few cookbooks, which was absolutely amazing experience. Been able to work with some of the best chefs in the world doing food photography. And for me, it's like, yeah, I obviously need to put out good work and hone my craft that way. But for me, it's a lot of it, or most of it's about building relationships. Like I always want to put out good work, but then I always try to be the best person I can be. It made me a little bit a detriment to myself in terms of maybe a little too giving, but that's just how I am. But I'm happy what I'm doing. I love the people that I work with, and been fortunate to, like I said, work with some of the best. And I'm always trying to push the envelope. I'm always hustling. I always say to my friends, if my hair isn't on fire, then I'm not doing enough. Like, it's just, I got to be working, whether it's, client work or just creating or trying to do new things. Just always trying to push the envelope and learn, and just put out good work. I guess to kind of where I am at now, I've been teaching food photography workshops for Leica for the past few years, and I really enjoy that, to kind of give back to people in it that want to learn, that are trusting me to kind of teach them what I know. So, like when I'm teaching the Leica Academies, I always say, like, obviously I'm very honored for them to be there, but like, um, I'm not super technical in terms of knowing all the gear or bells and whistles. I just know what works for me. So like when you're attending my classes, I'll teach you everything that I know, give you a good experience, and hopefully lead you down a path that will make the food photography aspect a little bit easier for you. So I've been doing that for a few years. I have another class coming up, which I'm very excited about. I think it's going to be my best one yet. It's going to be in New York, in Brooklyn, and it's going to be based out of the new Leica store in the meatpacking district. I'm going to be working with Chef Frederick at Aska in Brooklyn, which is a 2-star Michelin restaurant. And it's absolutely going to be fantastic. I was just in there the other day and looking at the light, and like for me, when I walk into a space, that's the first thing I'm always looking at is light. Just, if there's light, where's it coming from? What's the quality, the temperatures, and then how I'm going to utilize the space to create the images that I want. And so when I walked in there, it was just immediate, like it's going to be a home run. I'm like super excited to get in there. And then the other thing I've been able to do the last few months, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, the Kiran at Hobolite reached out to me to see if I wanted to do some work with them in terms of being a brand ambassador. And as soon as she like reached out to me, it was an obvious yes. I couldn't be more happier than with the team, the people there. The product is fantastic, and they're still a new company, but the initial launch and the product that they're putting out is great. But I'm even more excited about the team behind the brand here in the U.S. And I can't say enough good things about the team, and then being able to, they're super open to creativity with me. So we just did a couple of events in New York City. One in particular we did with the team at Mulberry, which is like a kind of a newer, schwankier cocktail lounge. So we did that partnered with Adam Ahmad. Basically, it was me having a desktop teach lighting, how I work in terms of like, especially a dark, moody place. So I created a mood board. It had a very specific vision, what I wanted to achieve. And so we had, I don't know, maybe 30 people attend. It's quite cramped, but, made it work. And the images that I was able to get, I'm super happy with. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's incredible. I mean, not only do you have you get to teach at the Leica Akademie and use, I mean, in my opinion, one of the best camera brands, not just because everybody talks about the red dot, but for the history, the legacy of the brand.
Yeah, and it's funny because people ask me why. Well, I guess I can kind of jump into that aspect. Why did I start shooting with Leica? How did that come about? So initially when I was kind of like learning and still jumping into the photography thing, I was using Canon, great brand, great history. It's a fantastic camera system. But the more I got into it, I was just like, I don't know, the images didn't really like, get to my core or resonate to me. And I was just like, and I kept seeing these images. I'm like, what kind of camera is this? Like, what is this? Like, there was a certain look to it. And come to find out, it was Leica. And then I struggled for like, I don't know, a couple of years to make that jump because, as it's not cheap. So I think initially I got an M6 because, like I said, I love shooting film. And then I remember making that decision. I got the original SL and I started to, use that into my professional work. And immediately I just saw just a striking difference in terms of image quality, the dynamic range, the color palette from Leica. And so, fast forward now, I've had the original SL, I have the SL2 now, the Q2, but my favorite, and I've actually started using it more for my personal and professional work, and I have a M10R which I absolutely love. And then Leica came out with a close focus 50 Summilux, I think in October. And as soon as I saw that with the close focus, I think it's like less than zero point 0.9 meters, like you can, how close you can get. It like opened up a whole new realm of a direction where I could take my work. And so I've been using it a lot to capture a new body of work in what I'm doing. And so I absolutely love that setup. The only problem, or if you want to call it a problem, is that it causes me to, which is a good thing for me, slow down, really think about composition, think about light, how I want to capture the image. And so it's not an easy system to use, especially for what I do. But when when I use it and get the images off, and they're like nothing out there that I've ever seen. So I'm like really stoked on that system.
And it's amazing how you can always tell. You can always tell a Leica image. You can see there's just something different about it. There's just something special.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not real techie. I know there are differences between the sensors, say like the new SL3 versus the SL2, and then if you take that system and you compare it to like my M10 or the M10 monochrome, like I know there are differences. I mean, I can't tell you because I'm not, like I said, techie, but when I see it, I know I'm like, oh, what is that? And that I figure out like what it is and talk to some of the Leica guys, and like that's what I want. So I knew, like, everyone's like, "Oh, you got to get the M11," and in talking, I mean, it would be a great camera, but I think from talking to some of my buddies, like the M10R was what I was going after, and then I'm just happy with that particular sensor. And now with that 50 Summilux and that 35 that I use, like that's my go-to.
It's so nice to have such a small kit, right?
Oh yeah.
You get in, it works, you know what's going to work with it, what's not going to work with it. That last setup you guys did at the Mulberry with Hobolite, being that I'm a Hobolite ambassador myself, I agree with everything you said about that company. I have nothing but great things to say about the product. It's beautiful, it's bold, it looks amazing, and the people behind it. Karan, haha, I said it right.
Yeah.
Has been probably one of the biggest supporters of this podcast and me as a human being, and helping me not only navigate some of the stuff I'm just starting to hit, but in giving me advice and giving me, a list of people that I should speak to because they have something special.
Yeah, she's a pretty special person.
So when you did the setup at the Mulberry for the Hobolite and what is it, Adorama event, the way it's lit, I'm looking at the photos. I have another screen right here, so I'm looking at the photos.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The way you lit it, like, I mean, did you light the liquor cabinet, or were you just doing it from the backside with gels? Like, so the red just pops like in the model's hair.
Well, I'm glad you noticed that, because like over the years, especially the last 2 years, I've been trying to get gigs that really allow me to kind of like go in with a specific focus and what I want to achieve. A lot of times, like when I go into restaurants or bars to do client work, I don't want to say I'm handicapped, but I don't have full discretion in terms of like how I want things. Because especially with restaurants, because like, for the most part, when I go in to a situation or a new restaurant, I have to work within parameters that are given to me, meaning that like I can't shut off all the lights and then light it the way that I want to. I have very specific situation where I can only work, say, in like at this corner of the restaurant, or so it's like it's really hard. So I'm always having to kind of go with the flow and figure out it as I go, which is good because it like helps me like in other situations, like with Mulberry. So to my point, I mean, to your question is like, so I had never been to the Mulberry, but whenever I go somewhere new, I try to ask like the client or somebody there to send me just, it doesn't matter if it's an iPhone image or whatever, just send me stuff that gives me background in terms of the layout, the lighting. Um, and so I had done enough like pre-production, so to speak, going into it. So I kind of knew how the layout was going to be. I knew it was really dark and I knew it had like a red hue or red vibe to it. So I already knew that going into it. So when I got there, I was able to kind of take what I looked at before and then just apply it to how I wanted it to look. And so I created a mood board for everybody based off of like certain cinema or movie films that I've scenes that I like. And so all I did was I used the ambient, that orange light that was coming out the bar. So that's what was already there. And then I just staged certain lights. I think I used one Pro, one of the Hobelite Avants. Those were the one key light, and then the hair light is off of I think her name's Daniela, the red hair. I really want that to pop. And so I threw some gels on those, and then I had like three of the minis, one for like the side light on the bartender, one on her face, so that was lit up, and then one on the cocktail. Um, and so what I was told the students there or people that were attended, like normally I wouldn't have that luxury of having that many lights at hand, but since I did, I was able to light it very specifically. But if I had done it where I usually only travel with like say two main lights, I do the Pro, the Avant, and then maybe one of the minis. And so thinking about it after, like I probably still would have got the same look. It just wouldn't have been as refined as it was. But the fact that I did have that, so I just used what I had, and it was awesome. And I probably set it up within 10 minutes. Like I just like kind of knew how I wanted it. Then we did a couple of test shots and then just kept adding and removing lights to kind of get the look that I wanted. And then I let the students have at it.
Yeah, it was the first thing I noticed was the gel on the hair.
Yeah.
And it really just adds because the lighting in the background, underscore medium raw on Instagram. You can see Jim's work. The lighting in the bar, like around the bottles of the liquor bottles, and then the way you have it lit, or the way he's wearing the red jacket matching the red hair with the gel. It's such a cool scene.
Yeah, that was like I said, like I wish every shoot I have could be like that, where I could just go in and have like the exact tools that I needed. But 95% of the time I'm having to just kind of go with the flow and make it work. And I'm still trying to put out good work, but it's just not where I'm like, what's the guy's name? Mark Seliger, or not Mark Seliger. He does like a Hollywood. He's one of those like I can't think of his name right now, but like he goes in and like just creates the scene from scratch the way that he wants it. And I'm like, that's what I would love to be able to do because I could like dial it in. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Leo Jacob has something to do with the Mulberry Bar, does he not?
Yeah, he does. So big shout out to him. Thank you, Leo. He's the one that allowed us to kind of use the space. And, he wasn't there at this time, which was a bummer. I was hoping to hang out with him a little bit, but really good dude, talented. And yeah, that's a really, really, really sexy bar.
Yeah, he's an amazing photographer in his own right, and also a fellow
Absolutely.
Hobelite ambassador.
Yeah.
I just really wish they would do these things. And I know we talked about it prior, and
Yeah.
Karan and I had spoken about it, being that I'm on the west coast of Canada and this is in New York City.
Yeah.
These are events that you can learn from in a video format. So stuff like this streamed or on their website so you could go back and watch the process. That would be such a great learning tool.
I completely agree. And like, if she's listening,
she will be.
This this is more of like we need to be doing more things like this with a very specific setup in terms of being able to broadcast live. But we did film the event, so something from that will be coming out so people can see a little bit more behind the scenes of what I did with them. And there's also more images coming out with, I worked with Minxie White. So I had two kind of like scenes set up. One scene was at the bar, which you've seen, and then the other one was in the back lounge, which but that's stunning just its own. So I'm like super excited to get that work out there. But yeah, I agree to your point that we can figure out like a really solid way to like do these events, because it doesn't have to be in New York. It doesn't have to be in LA. It could be anywhere that we're doing these events, showcasing the lights and then how people work, whether it's me or somebody else that, I think a lot of people would benefit from that in terms of seeing how other photographers work, being able to ask questions in real time, like through Zoom, you could, have somebody there answering questions. I think it'd be very beneficial.
And it would for sure, because lighting is such a finicky setup and a finicky subject for a lot of photographers, myself included. I'm very new to it. But I do have some ideas for some shoots I'm going to try to set up here in Vancouver, based around legendary couples in Hollywood cinema. So recreating the Scarface, Michelle Pfeiffer in their gear in a velvet booth with, smoke going through, and learning how to light those scenes. And I've been very fortunate. I have somebody I met when I went on a Fujifilm event. And she knows models. She knows a model that looks very much like, a young Al Pacino. And we're going to kind of collaborate on that, obviously using the Hobolight product. My goal up here in Canada, it's very hard to get this stuff because it's very expensive to get it across the border, just because we pay duties and everything, is to get it hands-on and in as many hands as humanly possible with the product that I currently have. So if there's lighting events, my daughter's a photographer, so if she needs it, boom, Hobolight. I just, Karan and I just gave a pro setup to a local school photography program through the Life of Phys Podcast.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So now kids are coming up, they're going to be able to put away the old weathered stuff that they had, and now they have a pro. They have an Avant if they need it from me. I'm actually a huge fan of the Iris. I think that light is
that's
so
funny you
cool.
said that. It's in my bag, but that's actually my favorite light they make. I love that little thing. That thing's awesome.
Eventually, I'm hoping that I'll have the full spectrum so I can be kind of a point person here in Vancouver.
Sure.
That, I will do whatever I can to promote Hobolight and the quality of the product. Unfortunately, we need to figure out a better way to get it to Canada because it is pricey.
Yeah. What if someone drove it across?
I still pay.
Oh, you still pay? Okay.
Yeah, so I had it originally sent to my sisters in Seattle. And my wife and my son and I drove down and grabbed it. And by the time it came across with an Avant and a Pro, it was like $600 in duties. Yeah. So we're working on it. They got my back. They stand behind what I'm doing. And even when I get frustrated, because, I would love to be putting the stuff in people's hands every day.
Yeah.
I even like local shops up here, I go in and I'm like, hey, have you seen this? After the Iris, after we were allowed to talk about it, boom. Have you seen this light? This light is super cool. And I let them play with it and they're really interested. Yeah. So hopefully in the near future, we have some kind of Canadian distribution that will eliminate a lot of these issues.
Yeah. Hint.
Yeah. No, it's not a hint. I've been like, hey, this is what needs to happen. Let's do it.
Let's make it happen. Absolutely.
So I'll probably have some lighting questions for you when it comes to setting up scenes in these places.
Yeah, the thing with me is like I said, I'm not techie at all, but like I study enough cinema and ask a lot of questions that I know, like going into a scene, how I want to light it. But by no means am I like the expert. So, I mean, I'll obviously help you how I can, but like, at least for me, if I don't know, I know where to ask. Like I know exactly who to go to in terms of like what can I be doing to light this scene? Because like, for me, like lighting is everything. That's how I always start off my shoots. To be all the time I'd be driving down the road and like at dusk and see how the lights coming across the road, or if I'm like I was in Japan with my family recently, and I remember walking through the back alleys and just seeing how like one little like light bulb kind of lit this alleyway, and I was like, man, like I knew like I would love to shoot that scene. So yeah, to like uh, whatever you need, but like I said, if I don't know, I know where to go.
And that's what I've learned since I started talking to fellow creatives and artists in February is everybody's been so open with their stories and who they are and what they're doing, and everybody is like, if I don't know, I'll know somebody. And it's this crazy circle that's been opened up in my
Yeah.
life of people that, you know, that are willing to help. And it shows, you know, it shows the up and coming people or the new photographers that it really, if you ask the question, you know, 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to get an answer back.
Hmm.
You know, and that's something
Yeah.
that I feel is very important for how building a community around photography is going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I agree. I think like me, I was one back because I remember when I was just starting out, like I didn't know anything. So to figure out or find the answers, like for the most part, people were very open to help. But you know, there are some times where people didn't want to like give away their secrets or whatever. But I'm always like, look, I'm not recreating the wheel. It is what it is. I'll tell you what I know, and like if you can make it better, then by all means, go ahead. But like, I don't care.
Well, in reality, it doesn't matter if there's 15, 20 people there. There's going to be 15 and 20 different perspectives of that image.
Yeah,
Everybody,
absolutely.
compositions are going to be different. Angles are going to be different. Everything's going to be different. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, you don't have to give away all your secret sauce to people, but you can give away the ability for them to get two steps ahead, you know?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, even if I do, like, which most of the time I'll tell them anyway, I don't care. But like, my image is still going to be different from what they do, in terms of like when I always tell clients, like, when prospective clients that they're like, "Whoa, this is what you charge," and I'm like, "Well, you got to remember, like, you're hiring me for my eye and the way that I photograph. Like, if you don't want to pay it, that's fine. Then go hire some influencer to do it for free or whatever." But you know, I'm at that point where like, if you want to hire me, great, let's do something killer, but don't pick me around and like, I can't stand that.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. That's another thing is I feel like so many people will undercut what they're worth just to have a job
Yeah,
instead of sticking to their guns and sticking to their value. They're making it look like we can all just, or whatever they're going to offer us, we're going to take
yeah,
instead of
no.
we have a set value. This is what we're worth. And if you really have to ask what we bring to the table, then you didn't look at the work I do.
Yeah, I've noticed, or I've done over the years, when I do have to give a quote for a job or whatever, that it does help. Like, and I tell my students, like, what I would do is, like, I get it all the time. Like, well, what's your number? Like, what do you charge? I'm like, well, let me email you something professional and proper. And then what I do is break down like what that number means. Like, I'm on set for 8 to 10 hours, then travel for 1 or 2 hours or whatever it is. Then I'm editing for 10 to 12 hours on top of that. And then I'm bringing the best equipment that there is. And then you're hiring me for my eyes. So like, there's a whole like item list of things that make up that number. And so they can kind of see, oh, okay, well, I understand that then, and then if it's like a magazine job or like a big brand job, and then, you're talking about usage rights and all that other stuff. So, there's a whole thing of that too.
And is that something that you took and learned from someone, or is that just something that you've figured out over time?
The itemized thing, that's what I started to do. I kind of figured that on my own, but what to charge, like I get that all the time. Like, well, how much should I charge? I'm like, well, it really comes down to two things: what you think you're worth and what you think you can get. If you can get 10 grand per shoot, then go ahead. But like, I know I don't get that. particular, like for like, especially with the industry that I'm in, the margins for restaurants are really small. If so, they don't have a lot of money to throw at photography or images. But I always say, just whatever you think you can get, go for it. I mean, I don't know, whatever you're comfortable with. So then I'll give them a range of like, I don't know, say $500 a shoot all the way up to like 6,000. Like, just depends on anywhere in there in terms of like where you think you are at in terms of your quality, image quality, and then what your market is. Because like the market here in San Diego is quite different than San Francisco or even New York. So it kind of depends on the market that you're in. So, yeah.
And then also, I feel like if you have an established client base where you have a proven track record, that's also going to dictate the price you put out.
Absolutely, yeah. Your body of work, like, if you go on my website, like that's like 12 years worth of work that, I've worked my ass off to work with some of those people that I admire and then look up to, and then to be able to work with them and put out a body of work is even more special to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading over your client list on your website, and it's quite impressive. But like you said, that's 12 years of work. That's not just, I woke up one day and went and shot one thing, and then I had this.
It's funny that you say that, because like I haven't said anything, but I was with Danny Clinch. You know Danny Clinch? So he's like one of my all-time favorite photographers, because I love like music photography and stuff. And secretly, that's kind of what I want to do. But anyway, so I was with them and I was asking him questions, and I'm like, hey, Danny, so being Danny Clinch, when you get a job, when you go into it, are you like, for me, I get like 5 or 10 minutes with the chef, and then like they're not comfortable in front of the camera. They've got like service stuff on their mind, or recipes, or whatever they got on their mind. And I've got like 10 minutes to get a portrait that has emotion to it, and so I asked them, like, when you go in, compared to now versus when you started, do you have that much more carte blanche to kind of do what you want? It's like, if they're hiring Danny Clinch, I figure like they want you to kind of do your thing. And he's like, well, not everything's, what did he say? Not everything's I remember the phrase he used, but basically everything is not hunky-dory for Danny Clinch. Like, I do have those moments, and he gave specific examples with certain artists, which I won't say, but like, basically he still has situations where he has like 5 minutes with, say Jay-Z or somebody that he's photographing, which, obviously it's a much bigger atmosphere in terms of where I'm photographing, but it's still similar in terms of like where we're at and career-wise. And so it kind of made me feel a little bit better knowing that, not everybody has like some of the high-end photographers have, all the carte blanche things where they can do exactly what they want. So
exactly. Yeah. And that's Danny Clinch's Danny Bones 64, I think.
Yeah.
I am familiar with his work.
Dude, that fucking guy's work is sick.
Well, hey, if you got an in, tell him to check that inbox and look for a Life of Phys email I sent.
Okay.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, he's like, like with all like he's super busy, so I'm sure if he can make the time, I'm sure he did.
And it's, that's one thing I've learned by doing. I've always been very introverted. I've never been someone who has spoke in front of people or would even imagine talking to somebody that I didn't know on the internet on like a Zoom call like this. So when I was welcomed into the fine arts school here to speak to the photography 9-10 majors. So I went in and explained my process, how I look at my...
I like how you say process.
That's a mixture.
Canadian.
Oh, that's a mixture. I'm American. So I'm American and I'm a dual citizen. So
good for you.
I'm originally from Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
So
nice.
I have this weird, my words are weird, and I think that's what makes everybody comment on my voice. Besides the fact it's deep, I have a weird,
very baritone.
I have a weird way of saying certain words. It's like a mixture of both.
Yeah.
I got welcome to come and speak to the class and just tell them about some of the pitfalls that I've run into in my, I guess I will say, photography career, and how I could start pulling them out too. They're all beneath my desk right now. I don't have that one.
I use this my desk light.
Nice. I don't have that one yet. I'm excited. Well, here I'll just do. Here's my desk light.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier. I'm like, that thing is ridiculous. Like I had one and I traded it in for a Mamiya 7 II.
Yeah,
which I absolutely love, but I miss that camera.
Yeah, that's this is very, very nicely on loan from a really good friend of mine.
If you can't see what we're talking about, he's holding a Hasselblad 500 CM in his hand, and I'm very envious because I actually want to get that back to throw a digital back on it.
Oh, that'd be nice with the Zeiss planer 80 mil. So we'll just put that back right over there where you can just see it in the camera.
There that's like a tease, man.
But anyway, I was speaking to them. I'm not a fan of the influencer title or word. I'm an artist, and I would much rather be an artist whose work is seen 30 or 40 years from now than just an influencer whose work is, well, some of their work is spectacular. I will never bash the work they do. They're great. It's just not my cup of tea.
Sure.
But when I asked them what they'd like to be, it was such a interesting dynamic. There were so many that were like, oh, yeah, cool. You can be an influencer, make money quick. But then you could see the few kids in the class where it clicked and they're like, I'm an artist. That's what I do. And it was so cool. And the teacher, Jen Eccles, what I love about the way she does her class is she allows the kids to push the so-called rules of photography. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's about learning the camera and shooting what you feel instead of exposure triangle and this and that and the other thing. And it was really neat. And that was my first time standing in front of people and speaking as based in photography. So that gave me hope.
How long ago was this?
This was probably towards the end of last year.
Oh, so fairly recently.
Yeah. It gave me
good for you.
So I've been trying to do this podcast for 2 years.
Oh.
And I just keep telling myself I couldn't do it. I recorded the first episode with a local super talented, well, not locally, just moved to the Philippines, but a local photographer named Alfonso Villian. Very, very cool stuff that he produces. And I was like, oh, he deserves better. He deserves a better platform. And I tried to talk myself out of even uploading it. And then I did it. And then you start seeing, you get one or two people, you're like, wow, 2 people actually listen to that. This is incredible.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then it snowballed from there. And when I put them out, I'm coming out of my shell to finally in my life at 49 years old, be authentically myself. You know, I've always been under this thing, like, you know, emotion isn't for me, but now where I'm getting help through therapy to help with my traumas. My mental health is in a way better place thanks to photography.
You bring up mental health. I mean, I'll share with you. I've dealt with generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder since I was 30. And then being in the restaurant industry, mental health is like something not to be taken lightly in terms of, like, you know, when people think of diseases, whether it's cancers or like heart disease or whatever, you know, I feel like mental health gets kind of put in the back burner, but where it really shouldn't, because, like, you know, you could be going to your local coffee shop and, you know, the person next to you does something that's not cool or whatever, but, you know, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they are, like, you know, dealing with something that's traumatic, or, you know, they're in a situation where things aren't good for them. And so, like, you know, I try to take that into consideration on my own side. And then, like, you know, it's such a personal thing too. So what I was going to say was, like, do you know who Corey Richards is? He's a climber, fucking amazing photographer. He was on the cover of Nat Geo, like when he climbed Everest. And anyway, he is a huge advocate for mental health. And so if you follow him on, let me pull it up on his Instagram. He doesn't talk about photography much anymore. It's always about mental health, and I really admire him. It's just Corey Richards on his Instagram. And anyway, so I think that's, for people out there that feel like they're alone or, don't have help, there are people out there who care about you and like want to help. And like I always tell my friends or people in the industry, if you need, and then it just unfortunately happened the other day. Somebody has been hurting, took the jump to reach out to me for help, like emotional support or whatever. And I'm glad he did. I worry about him, but I always tell him, like, I'm here for you, whatever you need, in terms of if it's just like someone to talk to, like this. So this, people shouldn't feel alone, or like, I want to start getting emotional about it because, like, it's a big deal. Like it's
100%. The biggest thing too is for me, and a big part of this, like I know women have a lot of mental health issues as well. But men's mental health, for as long as I can remember, has always been pushed to the side. It doesn't matter. We got to be tough. We got to be strong. We got to suck it up. Don't worry about it. If you push it down, it's not gonna come out. When I realized in my mid-30s how big of a load of shit that was, and that it was okay for me to express myself how I needed to, as far as letting people know I'm hurting, that it was okay to not be okay, that I didn't have to pretend. And then finding a core group of people that were around me that were willing to just listen to my story and let me talk. Mm-hmm. This podcast has actually let me share a whole bunch of the traumas that I've dealt with in my lifetime that I'm still working through.
Sure.
And the goal is really to let everybody know that, like yourself, you have a group of people. You're like, man, I'm here for you. This podcast is here for people. If you just can't talk to your family, if you can't talk to a friend, by all means, my email is on the podcast. Send me a message. I'll do my best to get back to you as fast as possible. But life is always good. No matter how shitty we feel or how much we feel the world is pushing down on our shoulders, we can there's always somebody that has been there that can tell you how to navigate it and help you get through it, because your life is important.
Absolutely.
I'm going to reach out to this Corey Richards guy. I have him on the screen here for sure.
Yeah, he's an amazing human being. I know, like, if you reach out to him, he just came out with a book too. And I know it talks about that a lot. So I would definitely do that.
Yeah. And thank you for opening yourself to the people around you, to be a place for them to reach out.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say earlier about you talking to the students, like, I always tell my students or people that I'm working with, you can't be afraid to put yourself out there, because, like, at least you tried. You can't be. I'm never afraid to fail. So, because, like, if you don't do it, then you will never know. And then, like, for me, it's sort of been like my ethos growing up. Like, I didn't come from money, or like, basically whatever I've achieved, it's basically been on my own. And so I've always had that. I don't know where it comes from, but that just inner drive to just keep pushing. But then again, there's this other side of me is like, I want to be able to support the people that need it or reach out to me.
And I think the more we talk about it as a group, and the more people are like, man, it's really actually okay to talk to people. I was so adamant against having a therapist. And I just, when I was younger, I had one, but for the first time in my adult life, a month ago, I started talking to one.
Good.
And man, the layers that got unraveled, like Shrek says, I got layers like an onion, like that's what's crazy is there is so much being adopted, were you? Mm-hmm. I met my birth mother for the first time at 48 years old last November. Unreal experience.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's pretty heavy. Dude, I didn't realize this podcast was going to be so like deep.
yeah, dude, I'm different platform, brother. I'm telling you, like, this is about your story. This is about you as a human being. It's not about the fact that you're an amazing photographer. What you're doing in the photography field is spectacular, and I actually look forward to coming and doing a class with you at some point.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But it's about the story. It's about you, who you are as a person. I don't get super deep into gear. I'll ask about it quickly.
Yeah,
I want to know your
yes.
process, how you got to where you are. And then in that process, by our communication and the way we talk, that's when the comfort level is there. And then all of a sudden, that's where you go, this is what I deal with. This is the stuff that I need to work on. I'm sure you can hear my dog barking
Yeah.
in the other background now.
Well, what I was gonna say is like another like thing that's really hard is being freelance.
But yeah, like I was saying, man, this podcast tends to always let people feel comfortable enough to go to a different level, to release to a different level. And I'm so grateful that, that I've been able to provide this place for people to, it gets the real story of you. A lot of interviews are just like, okay, you shoot food photography, you're a chef. Yeah, you shoot Leica gear, and then you're on to the next. I just want to hear the story.
No, I actually really like that about it because like there's too many like I mean it's fine, but like for me, I don't want to hear about it. I want to like you said, I want to hear about the person, the process, um, like what gets them excited, what's tough about being that being you or in terms of how you work and like I was going to say being freelance is a very difficult thing because like when I started out and to this day, I just do everything by myself. I don't have like an assistant. I don't have like a group of people. I mean, I do like sort of on the periphery to bounce things off of, but like for the most part, it's just me going out there and, you know, trying to capture what I'm trying to do, but then like having to deal with all that mental issue after, like, well, how come I didn't get that job? Or why is this person getting the job? Does my work suck? And like, it's like this vicious cycle. And then gotta remember, like, I have to tell myself certain things that, just because you didn't get that job or you're not working with this person, it's not because your work isn't any good. It's just could be, they have a relationship already, or like, maybe like it's a money thing. I don't know, but but it is hard though being freelance because like your mind gets going and then you have to always like kind of like dial it back in terms of like, it's you're doing good work. Just keep at it. Just keep kind of like keep the faith, so to speak.
And it's really hard, especially when you become very hypercritical. Like you're
Oh
saying, you
yeah.
start nitpicking every little detail of what's happening. The biggest thing that I can think of is that just wasn't the right time for you.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
such a cool way to think about it. And I'm learning this myself because I'm super critical of my own everything I do. If it doesn't work out and it doesn't work in the way I think it should work, I don't try to blame myself anymore. It just wasn't
Hmm.
my time.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
But what that gave me in that whole moment was it gave me experience. It let me experience not achieving what I thought I was going to get and achieve, and I'm fine. I'm okay. I can move forward. So working that into your day to day is always such an important thing.
Yeah. And for me too is like, what helps my mental health is like for me, I'm very, in tune with my body in terms of I know when I don't get enough like cardio or like time to work on my body, so to speak. Like so prior to like this whole thing, I was really a competitive triathlete. And so having that ability to get out on the road, on the bike or in the pool or whatever to get burn off some energy and burn off some of that anxiety and like So the last few years prior, up until recently, I was just focused on going, just go. And I realized just like recently, I'm like, man, like one, I'm like, I'm not getting any younger. And uh, kind of gotten out of the rhythm of like my getting my cardio in or whatever. Like, so I think what I'm trying to say is relieve that anxiety and like whether it's yoga or meditating, or for me, it's like getting in the pool or on my bike and like just, zoning out things and just burning off of, and then also getting back in shape. So it's kind of twofold, but it's super important. I mean, like, the person I was referring to earlier, like, I think he would like to be able to do that in terms of like dealing with his mental health, but instead he turned to the bottle, which is never a good thing. And so, you know, I I think that's just another mental disease in itself is alcoholism. It's, something that's prevalent in our industry. And so, I don't take it lightly, and so I don't think anyone else should either. So, um, that's I guess maybe another podcast or another long conversation, but it's just take care of your body and your mind.
It's so important. Um, being mentally and physically in that proper space is so important to be to build a platform for yourself. Build that foundation, and that's something that I let myself go over the last few years, and every day I wake up and I hate myself for it. I mean, when I was cycling, it was I would do 100-mile rides like it was nothing, right?
Wow.
And it was like, okay, cool. When I was skateboarding, I would skateboard 10 to 12 hours a day. And then when that was taken away, I just kind of quit, It was like, man, who cares? And now I got so much to live for, man. I got 6 children. I've got 2 grandkids.
Oh.
I've got a whole new family. Like I was saying, my brother Kent for sure is listening to this. He's in the Navy. So there you go, Kent. There's your shout out. But it's been amazing. That whole mom side of the family has been so welcoming and so open. I have a grandma. I have 2 sisters, 3 brothers. My mom, uncles, cousins, and they're all like so welcoming. They were
Awesome.
open arm. Dad's side, dad and my brothers on that side, not so much. But my aunts and uncles and cousins have all been amazing. I'm Indigenous, and I finally figured out my home community, which is amazing. So it allowed me to start to connect my Indigenous roots back to my life. And the Indigenous part of me that culture is very important. I'm around a lot of it. My wife is an Indigenous support worker. So it's very cool. The craziest part is I was adopted in Portland, Oregon. My home territory is 2 hours north of me in Merritt, British Columbia. So it's this weird connection for everything. They moved to Oregon. I moved from Oregon to Vancouver and then out to Langley, and I'm 2.5 hours away from my home community.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I have some projects I'm going to be working on with Indigenous communities across Canada. I've talked about it in other podcasts, so I won't bore people again. But yeah, man, just being all of these doors opened for me right around the same time. So it was basically 2 years ago. After finally, I had a DNA test on my desk here for 2.5 years that a friend of mine bought me. He's like, dude, just do this and figure it out.
Yeah, I did that.
And I was like, nah, I'm cool. I'm not going to do it. And I do these things where I have something and I get to the point I'm so mad at myself for not doing it that I just one day just go in and do it. So I did it, sent it out, came back. We started looking at the results. And then my wife is like a super sleuth. So she was on Facebook matching up photographs. And I found an aunt who happened to live in Victoria and that was coming over to the mainland. So Victoria is a ferry ride away from us here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she was coming over the next day. So I met her the next day, which led
See, if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it was just like 2 years ago is where I finally opened myself up to be okay with whatever came from it. If they weren't around anymore, if they didn't want anything to do with me, that's fine. But I'm going to let them know that, hey, here I am. whatever happens, happens. But now I know where I'm from, and I can start putting the pieces together. So it was a half good experience,
Nice.
so it's just about being willing to jump in with 2 feet.
That's what I was saying earlier. Just do it. Nothing gained if you don't like at least try.
Yeah. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm sure that's what you did when you started your photography journey. You were like, I like this and I'm just going to go for it. And
Yeah,
the more work you put in, the more reward you get from it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people just getting started?
Well, I mean, it's funny that you say that, like this, because it comes up all the time. And my thing is just don't be afraid to fail. For me, I always feel like I take 2 steps forward and one back. But just do it and don't be afraid to make mistakes and learn from whatever you're doing. You know, um, I think that's my biggest thing is just like, yeah, just go out and do it and don't be afraid to fail because if you don't, you won't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, well, I've appreciated your time.
Yeah, dude.
Where can people find you? Where's the best place to see your work?
Well, I mean, my website is just jimsullivanphotography.com. On the Instagram, it's underscore medium raw. Um, or my email is just jimsullivanphotography@gmail.com. If you have any questions, that you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy. I get it all the time in terms of like questions about photography or whatever. I'll do whatever I can to help out.
Well, man, I appreciate it. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, man. I wish we could give a big virtual hug. I would, but yeah.
One of these days, I'll convince someone to pay for my flight out to come see you. So,
Oh, or me go. I'd rather go up there. I love BC, man. It's like one of my favorite places.
if you make it here, please let me know
Yeah,
you're coming, and we'll get together. I'm uh,
absolutely. That would be awesome.
I'm
Yeah,
only I'm 30 minutes from Vancouver, so
yeah. I was just there. Like when I was there. What month are we
we are in June.
June? I think I was in November.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I love that place.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool city. I was when I grew up outside of Portland, Oregon, so I grew up in a
Mm.
small town called Milwaukee in Clackamas County. Like to go to the beach, it was 2.5 hours. To go to the mountains, it was 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is here. Like it's a little bit different, but like I'm maybe 15 minutes to the ocean, but then if I want to go up to Big Bear, hour and a half.
Yeah, I moved
Kind of
to
cool.
where I moved to was my mom's childhood home.
Oh
I
well.
was I was 20 blocks to the ocean, and I was half an hour to the mountain.
Yeah. See, that's the nice thing about Vancouver. Like
Yeah,
that's a beautiful city right on the water.
yeah,
And then take a bus or car up to Whistler or whatever.
yep. And even the local mountains are world
Oh
class
yeah.
skiing. So
What's the one? It's like right across. I always forget what it's called.
there's Grouse, Cypress, and Seymour.
Yeah, I'm thinking of grouse. I
Yeah,
always think it was a bird, but yeah.
yeah, with the big the tram that takes you up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great experience. I mean, the images, if you're into skiing and snowboarding at night,
Oh
you
yeah.
you want the city of Vancouver in the background while
That's
somebody's hitting a
sick.
big air. Like
Yeah.
you can't beat the mountains around here.
It's funny. My wife and I, we honeymooned on Tofino.
Oh, one of my favorite
So,
places in the world.
oh God, yeah, it's like magical.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I like going up there. It's just,
When we're done here, I'll fire you an email. I'll throw you my
yeah.
phone number and stuff.
All right, brother.
But definitely, I'd love to add you to my inner circle.
Absolutely. I'm here for you.
That one, I truly appreciate the work that you do. But two, just the dude you are is great. I mean, you're cut from the same cloth as me, and that's what I need around me. I need some people that are true to themselves and not the people that used to be around me that I don't even know where they are anymore.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, absolutely, I'm here to.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE_OF_PHYS or on the internet at www.lifeofphys.com. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.